Good morning and
Hello.
welcome to Reuzel Live. Today is Monday, October 10th. My name is Nicholas Giberson with Reuzel Education Today. We have a very special broadcast for you, live from the Old School Barber Academy in Rotterdam, Holland. We've got Head Instructor Jonah. Take it away, Jonah.
Hello. Hi. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, night, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in for the live demo from the Old School Barber Academy with my lovely model, Daniel, Danielle, Daniel, whatever you want. I've been cutting his hair for a long time now, and I thought he was going to be a great model for our live demonstration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I do like a skin faded slick back on his hair. It's a pretty common classic haircut in, I think, barbershops all over the world, but especially in our shop, in our academy, it's definitely a high requested haircut. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to talk you through it a little bit, but mainly just going to show you how I do stuff like this. I think a slick back is just one of those haircuts that really works for a lot of people if they have the right hair type for it. It's just a perfect example of less is more, I think. A lot of people, they come in a barbershop and then they say like, well, I want to have like a pump that's this high and I want to have like crazy stuff going on, which, obviously everyone would like that and it's definitely a look. But I think people always underestimate a slick back a little bit. It's really rock and roll, it's really classic, it's really simple, but within the simplicity, I think it's a really nice haircut. And what is also nice, like we're not gonna lie, it's a haircut that's easy to maintain and style at home. So, for everyone who is looking for something that, in my opinion, is really cool, I would say go for a slick back. So as you can see, I've started wetting down the hair. He came in with pretty clean hair for like once, because he always comes in with like hairspray and like everything. He definitely uses Reuzel products as well. Been switching from like oil-based to water-based, and I think we're kind of stuck on the water-based products. Again, they're pretty practical. They hold, they last. That's nice. So he uses a mix of some products sometimes as well. So it's going to be interesting for the styling. But again, it's going to be like a nice classic tight slick back. So it's going to be fun. We're going to start cutting. We're going to start combing in a baseline. Let me just grab a towel in the meantime. We're going to start combing in a baseline. For in case you don't know what it is, it's pretty much the main section, the most important section we use for the haircuts. It's kind of like a horseshoe section for the hairdressers that are among us. It's pretty much a section that starts from the temple area. I kind of use the hairlines as a reference where they come together. So pretty much right over here, if you were to take these two, they come together in this corner. And then I like to go just like horizontally in on the side. See, and then make a section between the hair that I want to leave to the side and the hair that I want to save for the top. And then pretty much just behind the ear, I start to drop the line a bit lower. So it's going to create this nice fluent curve all the way down to the back and the middle of the head. Now, you can comb in both lines at the same time, because that is actually going to be nice for your symmetry. You can really check if the lines are on the same height, if they have the same balance. Now, for practical reasons, I'm just going to start cutting on this side, and then when I'm done, more or less done, I'm going to go to the other side, repeat the same process, and start cutting over there. But this is pretty much how you want it to look like. So it's a pretty fluent line. You don't want to see any angles in there. So you don't want to drop down like in a steep angle. You really want it to go nice and soft, right? It's got to be fluent. So we're pretty much just going to start with a clipper. I like to use the vowel comb, so the standard comb that comes with your vowel clipper. They're really nice. They're steady, they're nice and big, they're not too wide. They're perfect for clipper over comb techniques. We're going to start setting in a length on the section of the baseline. So what I'm going to do is I comb the hair straight out of the baseline, lifting the hair up. And I'm trying not to tilt my comb too much, so I'm not going out or in. I just want to have it pretty parallel to the side of the head. So once I got my guide over there, I can use that guide to cut the new hair that is sitting next to it, and I can just connect the hair to my previous cut baseline. And then that guide is going to be traveling all over the side and the back of the head. Still lifting. I'm tilting a little bit more in the back because the head is more slightly angled here. So it is nice to adjust my comb to the shape of the head. See, and then I use that guideline throughout the haircut. Okay, so now first section is pretty much cut. So this is going to be my guide for pretty much the rest of the haircut from now. And then I'm going to lift up the new hair that is sitting under it. You can see it sticking out there, and this is my previous cut guide. And we can connect the hair that is sticking out to the guideline. So as I go lower, I start to tilt the comb a little bit more. I start to tilt a little bit more in towards the bottom. So where I was completely straight first, I'm starting to slightly tilt it over here. So I go a little bit shorter under my baseline, and I maintain the length that I have already cut on my baseline because I don't want to go too much shorter there now. I am probably going to go a little bit shorter eventually over the whole haircut because after we cut the whole base, we start blending the hair a little bit as well when it's dry. And it's always going to take off some more length. So whenever you do haircuts like this, it's always nice to leave a little bit of extra length. Especially on his hair because he's got really, I hope you can see it good on the camera, but he's got the really straight, fine hair, but he's got a lot of hair too. So it is hair that you know what it's going to do when it's going to be too short. It's going to jump all over. If it's too long, it's also going to like spike out. You can't really style it. So there is like this sweet spot on what length you need. And you know, everyone knows you can always go shorter. You cannot stick the hair back on. So whenever you're in doubt, just leave it a little bit longer, and you'll be able to work with the hair later on. So see, I'm just working my way lower and lower, going down, still using my references of the hair that I've cut earlier, which is now still all above. So now I'm pretty much halfway. So I've cut this all the way down to here. This is still uncut at the moment, and you can already see it's getting lighter up here. So this is pretty much going to be the start of our fade right over here in the middle. So right now I'm going to take my comb and actually put it against the head and apply a little bit of pressure. You don't want to be too soft, right? You don't want to pet your customer. You want to make sure the comb has some grip. Again, tilt on the top so you don't go shorter there. And we're going to go over the side with the comb once more. And make sure that the whole area that I'm cutting right now in the middle has pretty much the length of the thickness of the comb. That length kind of corresponds with a number 1 guard opened up. It's around 4.5 millimeter of length that you're cutting when the comb is down to the skin. So I'm going all over. Don't forget that little front corner. A lot of people kind of forget to take that along because otherwise you get this really heavy area on the front. So I'm trying to get everything down. So now we've got a pretty nice base for some fading. Okay, and I can imagine, I know a lot of people that when they do a fade, they just kind of start fading right away. They use a guard or they put in a line. You know, I feel like this is a pretty safe method, and you pretty much cancel out a lot of risk, because you can always adjust later, you can always fade into it. You're not bound to a certain length or a certain, technique. You can switch it up from here pretty. You can vary a little bit with what you want to do. So that's nice. I like that. Let me just quickly grab a guard, because I do use guards. So I want to show you the guard on this side. I'm going to try to do the other side a little bit different. I want to try and do completely flipper over comb and freehand, and then show you multiple techniques. And also on the other side, I want to try and speed it up a little bit so you can see how I would actually do it in the shop. Because when you see it now, you're like, oh, it looks pretty slow. It's all done with the comb. It's kind of, you could say outdated maybe, because it is quite an old technique. But I keep using it because it keeps getting nice results for me, right? So, and if something works, why change it? So I got my number one clipper. Open it up so it's like a 1.5, right? So that's around 4.5 millimeters if I'm not mistaken. And then I'm just going to fade into where I left off with my comb. So I should get a nice transition from what I did with the comb into what I'm fading now with the guard. So the back is a little bit darker because of the lighting in the school, but I'll turn around a little bit here and there as well, so you can see the full result in nice daylight. That's always a tip I would give barbers and hairdressers. Turn your chair around, especially in the old school. It's a lovely building, but the lighting is kind of dodgy, because you got a lot of artificial light over here. You got your daylight over there. So whenever you're working on this side, this gets really dark because you got a lot of counter light, which is kind of blinding you in the eye. And also there's more shadow coming from here. So this is usually a really dark side. This side is really visible if you're working like this. So we usually, I'm now cutting this side towards my daylight. When I'm going to go to the other side, I'm going to turn the chair around so I got that same light on the side of the head. So faded with the 1.5. So now I got my clipper closed, and I'm pretty much going to do the same thing, but I'm going to stay a little bit lower. And as I'm moving, I'm slowly moving towards the back as well. So I try not to make the sweeps too big and too high. I try to stay in like a centimeter or half an inch range with the clipper. See, because you don't want to like go higher and then kind of end up in your baseline. You got to see it like this. This is pretty much already cut. This is like 90% done. I'm still going to do stuff to it, but I'm not going to go substantially shorter. All the way to the back. Okay, so now we've got the number one length all over. I take off the guard. And now I'm just going to open it up so we got the 0.5. And with that, I'm going to pretty much do the same thing, but a little bit lower again. So the shorter you go, the lower you go. And then we're just going to keep going all over the side. And maybe you'll see, but so what I did with the comb is that I kind of follow the baseline with my comb, right? So you see the section going down towards the back, so my comb is doing the same thing. But now with the fading, the same thing is happening. So I'm going pretty horizontal over here behind the ear. I'm dropping down, right? So you got a little bit more length over under the crown area. If you go on the same height, you're going to end up too high under the crown. You don't want that. You're going to have a bad time. So I got the 0.5 going on pretty steady. You can go straight to a 0, but I like to click it just in the middle, so it's like a 0.25, and then make sure that it's just transitioning in the middle a little bit over there. The 0 can leave a line sometimes, so now I'm closing it. See, and then for the bottom, I can do the 0, going back to the 0.25 again. Just creating that little bridge, 0, and you can sweep all of the leftover hair away. So I don't really use a fade brush all the time. I just get a nice cleaning brush. This one is a little bit sturdier, so it's pretty much going to do the same thing as a fade brush. And then I like to just clean up the fade a little bit. Still, the way we work, we try to get like the blueprint, like the bigger, just like the we kind of construct the haircut first and then we do the detailing, right? So to me, for now, this is looking good. There is a fade going on. It's still a little bit dark here and there. And again, I'm not sure how well you can see it on the camera, and it's also due to the light, but he's got the surface of his skull and skin isn't the straightest. So there is some dips, there is some bumps here and there. So that's stuff you do want to keep in mind. Again, I just don't want to fade too much. I want to leave something so I can either blend it, do some clipper over comb, go over it with a guard again, but I want to look at the whole thing before I go crazy on detail. So, a lot of talking. I'm trying to keep cutting while I'm talking. So, these demos here, I'm pretty much forced to do it in an hour right now. But at the school, if you're ever interested or wondering how it's going on over here, so we do these classes which usually involve haircut demos, either by me, obviously by Rob. Duncan does them as well. Every once in a while there is a guest from Schorum doing a demo. But we got like 2.5 hours for those. So you can imagine it's easy to kind of forget about time and just go crazy and run really late and get delayed and everything. But yeah, now it's gonna be done in an hour, so I gotta keep going. My demos are usually like the first hour is just talking, and then I'm like, oh wait, maybe I should do a haircut, and then I'm like, oh wait, I still didn't start, and then I'm half an hour like even further into the demo, and then I got like 40 minutes left, and then I do the haircut. So this is nice. This is rare. You actually get to see me work. All right, there we go. So I'm just slightly adjusting my baseline so it's 100% where I want to have it. So I'm going to try and speed it up a little bit. I said try. Didn't say I was going to do it, but let's see. So, baseline. So you just want to make sure that the hand that is holding the comb is steady, because this doesn't determine what's going to go off. This is going to determine what's going to go off. Okay? So the clipper is going to do the work for you. If you know how to turn it on, there's not a lot of rocket science to it. All right? But the comb, which is guiding you, that's going to make or break the haircut. So, baseline done. Second line, slightly tilt. All the way to the back, following my guide, looking at the guide above and looking at the guide that is left of my comb right now. There we go, all the way to the middle. Third line, more tilt. So I'm going shorter in the bottom. So he's got this thing where the right side of the hair and the left side of the hair have a slightly different fall. So if you have the same thing with a customer or a model, if you notice you have to slightly cut one side different than the other to make it look the same, that's really common. It's something you really have to keep in mind. You have it with, I find with beard trims, it's you see it a lot. Because a lot of guys have like sometimes they'll have like a swirl over in their neck right here, and then here it's all going down. Like you couldn't cut them the same way and make it look the same, because they got different grow patterns. You got to use different techniques and different angles. And with, you know, haircuts, that's completely the same. So this side is slightly jumpier, slightly pokier. So I'm going to use slightly different angles and different pressure, different tension to cut it, as I did on the other side. But now I'm pretty much down to the skin with the comb again. So that's going to be the base of our fade. Pushing down. There we go. Going all over the side. Connecting. There we go. Okay. I'll slightly turn the chair.
Hey, Jonah, we got a question.
All right. What's the
The
question?
question is, how do you know how much length to leave with the first baseline? How do you determine your initial length for your baseline?
That's a super, super, super good question, and we get it a lot. And it's, you know, you never really know. So if you're cutting someone for the first time, again, just leave it a little bit longer. If you have experience, if you know how to do a haircut, it's kind of a feeling thing, right? I never measure. I don't ask customers what number guard they want on the side. I just ask them what they want to see on their haircut, and that's what I'm gonna do. So in some cases, if someone has really fine blonde hair, um, when you're cutting it on a certain length, it's gonna look totally different than when you do it on someone with really thick black hair. So by experience, you'll find out what works and what doesn't. I guess the best answer to this question is I definitely made some mistakes before I found out how it should be done, which is all right. Just try not to do it on customers and find models if you're trying to, you know, explore that. But it's kind of a feeling. At some point, if you've got someone a few times, then you kind of know what to do. If you notice someone has a hair type that's really common, then usually you've probably done it a few times already, so you'll kind of know as well. But it's a feeling. To me, it's a feeling. I don't measure. You just kind of got to try out, and you know, you don't want to fail to get better, but sometimes you have to find out what is too short and what is too long. Um, I tend to. I think the times where I think I screwed up, it was actually more that I left everything way too long and that I had to do the haircut again, like the whole thing. If you go a little bit too short, you gotta do really crazy stuff for a haircut to be unsavable. So just play around with length, and you'll get the hang of it at some time, definitely. All right, so down to the skin everywhere. So we're gonna funk it up a little bit. So I used the number one guard for the first side. Now I'm just quickly checking the profile of the haircut. So I'm trying not to look inside the haircut, but I'm looking at the outer shape. So as you can see, maybe, I'm not sure how much you can catch it on camera, but there's still a little bit of like a bump in the baseline. So I'm just gonna quickly cross-check it to square it up a little bit more. I want to have it nice and square. Okay, so another way of tackling your question would be a lot of barbers and hairdressers look at the hair only from this side. So, you don't see a lot of depth from here. You don't see perspective. When you stand over here, you can see what the profile and the outer layer of the hair is going to do. And that's going to be really important for your haircut, because you don't want it to be too voluminous. You don't want it to be too flat. It's going to be round, maybe. You don't want that either. You just want to have a nice square side. But again, we're going to go shorter anyway. But this is already looking better to how I want to have it. So now, instead of using a guard, I'm just going to take the clipper and I'm going to open it up. Okay, so I got the lever down, so it's like a 0.5. And instead of holding the clipper flat to the skin, I'm going to angle it. So there's like close to a 90-degree angle on my clipper, right? And what it's going to do, it's going to increase the length of the cutting blade, okay? So it's going to look more like a number one guard. And then I'm just going to fade into what I did with the comb. So up till now, both sides, I've done them pretty identical. And this is where the fading just gets totally different. And I think this is nice because, guards are a great tool to give you some security. And if you really want to know exactly what length you're cutting, you need a guard. Because this is really, I couldn't tell you how many millimeters these are. It's going to be different here from here. But I don't really care. To me, it's about how the haircut looks. But this, at least I found that it's really nice it helped me understand the anatomy of a human head a little bit better, because everything is really down to your head. The way you flick the clipper out, the way you you project the angle of the clipper. Stuff like that becomes so much more important because there's no safety net between this and the skin. So is it unsafer? Yeah, of course. But when you practice something a lot, you're gonna get better at it, and then you're gonna get comfortable with it. And to me, like now I'm holding it flat, so it's gonna go shorter. So this is gonna be the 0.5. And then again, the same thing. Right in the middle, transitioning length, cheeky little 0 in the bottom. All right. So I think a lot of people have learned to fade with guards, and I think that's great. It works really well. It's safe. It gets you familiar with the clipper. It's nice. You get something to rely on. And I think I started like playing around with this just because I thought it was, I wanted to keep it interesting for myself. And I think if you feel like you're getting at a point where you're getting bored with haircuts, because that's totally like possible. It's not weird that it happens, especially if you have a lot of customers in a day. Um, you gotta keep it interesting and fun for yourself, and this was a nice way to keep it fun for myself. So, um, see now, I'm just using the comb again to do a quick like clipper over comb cross check to take out the last little bit of weight that may be left in there. You can use the comb as like a traveling guard. You know, again, does it look more difficult? Maybe. If you're used to only using guards and lines, fading, you're gonna be like, wow, that's like totally different. Like I couldn't fade out a line at all. If I would take a trimmer and would go like this, I could go home for real. I would just go home, cry, quit my job. I don't know how to get it done, but other people do, and I think that's a nice thing. Eventually, we create the same result, but there's like a million ways to do it, and nothing is really wrong. Nothing is necessarily the best. It's all, it's really personal in that sense. So, sides of the back are as good as done. Again, I'm not saying I'm totally done with them, but I got the length there. I got the transition that I want to see. So I'm pretty good to go to the top, and also I'm halfway, so I should. So applying a little bit more water. Also because the baselines, the sections, they can dry in the hair a little bit. And you want to take those artificial lines out because they're going to mess with the natural fall of the hair. So apply a little bit of water. I never tend to get the hair like drenched. Sometimes I see customers and then the hair is just like dripping. It's like a shower. I think it's a little too much because it can make the hair too heavy. I just want to make sure that there's an even coverage of water on the hair. So we're going to create a new section that is actually relying on this part of the hairline a little bit, and it's going to be traveling from where we started with the baseline up to the highest point of the head. That's where it's going to cross. So when it's in the middle of the head, you pretty much want it to be up on the apex, I think that's called, with a really pretty word. There we go. So it's going to be this nice, and you can kind of pull it through all the way. You can also, because this is going to be a symmetrical haircut, you can also put both of them in at the same time, so you get this triangle-like shape in the front. If you do that, you want to make sure that it's going to be right in the middle. So unlike this, where I still have to tweak it a little bit, but you should be able to get a nice triangle shape in the middle of the front of the head, which is just going to make sure that we are not able to cut the front panel yet. So this section of the hair, this portion, it's a really important part of the hair, of doing a haircut in general. Not even only in barbering, but definitely in hairdressing as well. If you look at the long hair with the fringes in the front, like the bob line haircuts with the fringe, it's all about this part, right? And our haircuts have a lot of similarities between with hairdressery haircuts. I could talk about that for hours. I'm not going to do that, but it's an important part of the hair, and be careful with it. A lot of times, for example, sometimes customers come in and then they say, yeah, I want this and that, and I want nothing off the top. A lot of barbers and hairdressers tend to not cut anything up here. But what customers usually mean by I don't want anything off the top is they mean they want nothing off from here, because this is the whole showmaker. This is everything you see from the front. This is all you see when you style it. This hair needs to be connected and cut somehow if you're going shorter around your baseline, because otherwise this is just going to hang over it and do nothing. But here, this is where you can play around and leave it longer. So what I'm now going to do is pretty much start cutting the hair behind the ears. So I'm just quickly sectioning off the front panels on the sides. So we got this big panel over at the back. And I usually start somewhere slightly sideways behind the middle, right over there. So I'm combing the hair without any tension. I'm not pulling it like this and then cutting it and then letting it go, because it's going to do that. I'm cutting it very softly and gently. See, and then I'm combing it over the baseline, but again, without tension. And then let's see, there it is. I hope you can catch that. But there is the guideline laying under the hair of the crown area. And then we can start cutting away. I always use a slight point cut to add a little bit of texture right away. Especially on this really, really, really straight hair, it is nice to leave that in there a little bit. It's going to help you later in the haircut. You have to blend a little bit less.
Hey, Jonah.
Yeah.
Just checking in with you. We're a few minutes past the half.
Yep.
We've got viewers from Guatemala, Canada, the U.S., Estonia, Thailand. Paul Taylor Clinch from the UK said hello. He'll see you in a few weeks. Colombia and the Netherlands.
Wow, that's...
So plenty of viewers from all over the place.
It is still pretty impressive that people from all of these countries tune in and take the time to look at these demos. And I really, really hope that everyone is getting at least something out of it. Yeah, first off, I just want to thank everyone from everywhere around where you're looking at from. Thank you so much for looking and for the support. We hope to see you here one day if you feel like you want to come to the Old School. Yeah, you know, the way I do this, the way, you know, not even only I, but the way we do it at Rotterdam and the Old School, it's, you know, I hope people get something out of it, and I hope it's in some way inspiring. I would never say this is the best way or the only way to do a haircut. Okay, let me just get that straight. We didn't invent anything really, you know, it's a lot of learning and passing on, which does it, you know, and I think it's important that everyone just is open for learning their whole life. Because at some point it's going to get really boring if you think you know everything. So I'm just quickly picking up the hair a little bit higher, slightly diagonal. Not even to cut length, but just do a little bit of an extra point cut, you know, for some nice texture. But again, this hair is really jumpy up here, so I don't want to go and like take off loads of hair. Just want to freshen it up a little bit. So now I'm pretty much going towards the front panels, and this is where we're going to change it up a little bit. We're going to increase length towards the front. So it means I'm not going to cut all of this hair to the baseline, because this would go really short, and you need this hair to comb it to the back. You can already see what that is going to do. But to take out weight, we do want to make it transition from short to long. So this is going to be my longest reference. And then with a little bit of a heavier point cut. There we go. See how that's a nice fluent line? You can also, if you're working with longer hair, do it freehand. It also looks really cool. So if you want to get extra tips, you do that. See, now you can just comb this to the back. It's slightly disconnected, basically. But that's kind of what you need. If you feel like it gives you too much weight, you can always split this one up. Take a little corner, just a little one, okay, and then cut this slightly shorter. I'm still not cutting it all the way to my baseline, but it's going to relieve a little bit of weight and thereby adding a little bit of control. So now this is my important guide, and I'm going to connect the whole front panel to it as well. And basically whatever I'm going to do here, I am going to do on the other side as well. And with a lot of these symmetrical haircuts, there's always, like I said before, there's always slight differences because practically no one's head is completely the same on both sides. But see, you pretty much use the same guides and the same direction because you want it to look the same on both sides. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but on the other side. So I'm going to speed through that a little bit. All right. All right. I hope everyone is having fun so far. I hope everyone can hear everything well. You can always reach out on Instagram from the school, for example, the Old School Barber Academy. If you have any questions about haircuts, specific stuff, don't hesitate to send us a message. And obviously there's a lot of content. Oh wait, let me get the little corner out before I forget. There's a lot of content on YouTube and on Instagram, Facebook, but especially on the Reuzel channel on YouTube, there's a lot of stuff to see with like thoroughly well-explained demos. We were talking about it earlier, but Guy, who is actually filming right now from Rotterdam, he did a demonstration in Portuguese. So, you know, we're trying to make it clear for as many people as possible. We had a French demo as well on our YouTube. Really thoroughly explained demos. So we're going to try to get more of those out in different languages. All right, there we go. So now I've pretty much cut the whole top. Usually what I like to do is just make one more quick guide from the crown area. And I just, you know, I don't want to say I'm not precise, but I'm not sectioning this off. I'm just grabbing the whole top. This is my crown, cowlick area. I want to leave that as it is, but then I'm going to point cut through the top, creating an increasing length towards the front. And if I'm right, would be nice for once, then I should be ending up in the front length, which is also a little bit shorter. And that's because we've already cut it to both sides over here. So if you comb everything up, it's just a nice extra check to relieve some weight as well. Now, I'm gonna dry the hair pretty quick, and then we're actually already kind of leaning towards the end. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Dear God, oh, I'm having such fun. All right, you take a little bit of Reuzel Grooming Tonic, www.reuzel.com, I think, right? It's on there. Yeah, really nice product. It's a nice fixation for, sorry, this is a friend of mine. It's a nice fixation for hair drying. It's going to give you a little bit of extra control. So just a splash, okay? And you want to divide that through the hair, making sure the product is everywhere. There we go. Smells really nice, you know. That's nice. They'll come back for that. They like that, you know. All right. So then you take a dryer. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the nozzle. He's trying to get in. Give me 5 minutes. I don't really use the nozzle. I don't use. I use it sometimes, but I use it when I feel like I really need it. I don't like compression, and I like air to flow around. This helps to kind of fan the air out. So I usually start in the back, work my way towards the front. I use a ventilation brush, so it has to open back, okay? Because I just wanna dry the hair naturally. I don't wanna like bump it up. I don't wanna do crazy stuff with it. I just wanna lay it down in its natural shape, dry. So there we go. also use my hands just to feel through the hair, especially to feel if there's no moisture left in the hair, because you can't really feel it if you don't like touch it with your hand. Now, I usually take a blending scissor just to take out the most weight in the back over here. This, especially with slick backs, you don't need to spend too much time blending this because it's all going to go to the back. It's going to open up and texturize naturally. If you blend too much over there, it can become too spiky. Here, all the weight gets pushed towards this point. So here it's nice to do a little bit of blending to take out a bit of weight, and it's even a little bit of length actually, because now since the hair is dry, you just get a better visual of where the length and where the weight is. You want to keep moving with that comb and with that scissor. There you go. Just cleaning it up a little bit. Guy is doing a marvelous job filming this.
Try my best.
It's great. I'm like, cameras are floating around me. He's like a ballet dancer, just doing his thing. He's great. All right. So you can lift up a little bit more. See, I'm actually cutting the higher layers now, just by pushing the comb up a little bit more and slightly following the head shape. But you don't want to overdo that. This scissor, there's so much controversy over this scissor, over this tool, because it's like a lot of people swear by it, a lot of people hate it, they loathe it, they despise it, they want to burn them. I think it's important that you need to know how to use them. We don't really use them as thinners, we use them to cut length really, but we're cutting length with texture, right? With regular scissor over comb, it can leave hair blunt. And with a texturizing blending scissor, thinning scissor, however you want to call it, you just get a little bit of texture, but you gotta know it's gonna take off me. I'm gonna do a little bit of blending on top, which I like to do with slicing techniques. So I take pretty big panels, and I take a regular scissor, and I slice from the inside out. So as I move my scissor out and up, I slowly close it, but I never fully close it. But it's just going to allow me to create a little bit of space in between the hair and without taking too much more length. Because if you're point cutting, you're always cutting a little bit of length off because you're going against the end of the hair. But if you're going from the inside out, there is very little length cut and there is mainly weight cut out, which is just really nice for if you've already determined all your lengths with, which is what I usually do when I cut hair. I like to get most of it done in wet hair, and then I just need to put in the last little details when it's dry. But that's pretty much it. So I'm just slicing through a little bit. Again, if there's hairdressers among us, they probably know how this stuff works and done it a million times. And in barbering, I think it's a little less common, but I like it a lot. I feel like it gives me a lot of control over the haircut. And it's just fun, again, it's just like if you're doing a lot of haircuts, like I'm not gonna lie, at some point, especially if you have a lot of customers that ask for the same haircuts, you're pretty much doing the same thing the whole day, which can become a little bit boring. So just spice it up, do stuff that you don't usually do, add some new techniques to your repertoire, just funk it up a little bit, So there's a little
Hey, Jonah?
Yeah.
While you were blow drying, I asked for product recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people want to see green, pink, some white, maybe some grooming cream.
I know. Well, the thing is, because I was talking about it before the demo with my model Daniel, and he used to dark blue. Yeah. He uses dark blue now, the fiber, which is one of my absolute favorite products. So I'm just going to finish up the haircut. I'm going to explain you through this. I'm going to do a little bit more clipper over comb to kind of even out the sides and the back. So just watch as I peacefully explain and do this at the same time. He used to use green and it worked absolutely great. He's got the hair for it. It adds a nice shine. He's got the really jumpy, pokey hair. So green is actually nice to soften it up a little bit and flex the hair up. But he's not a really big fan of it anymore. So we tried a bunch of different things. I think light blue at some point, which is red, which are the shinier, stickier water-based products. They work really well too. But he's come down to liking the slightly more dry finish products, which are also nice and strong, but just let the hair breathe a little bit more, which is nice because it's also allowing him to restyle his hair a little bit throughout the day. It's easy to wash out. We all know the things that we like about these products. They're a little bit more practical, and just really nice for the more modern user and styler. I think you cannot really expect everyone to use grease, especially on this hair. If I were to put in pink, it's just going to be like super unnecessary. I love the products, but those are products that you really need to know where and when to use them for the hair type, for the customer, for the durability of the haircut. And in this case, he uses the dark blue, so the fiber. He uses the gray, the extreme hold. The grooming cream is really nice, but it's really light. It's a little bit too light for his hair. I'm going to use a nice mixture of fiber and extreme. And that's just going to hold it in place and do the job for me. Yeah, there we go. Little bit of blending with the scissor, but I try to do that minimally. I don't want to cut too much in the fade, but it can work nice to soften it up a little bit. But again, you got to be careful. You really got to stay on the surface of the hair. Yeah. Okay. We're going to style. Give me 2 seconds. Just keep filming. Right? So just have a little look around the haircut. How it's looking so far. So far, this is what we got down. We're going to use some product. Again, I just really want to make sure that I use something that is going to work for my customer. Right? If you're just going to slap something in that sounds cool and is really strong, it's not necessarily the best thing. I like light products. I like movement. I like just trying to kind of let the hair do what it needs to do. So I want to use something that is strong enough. So this is pretty strong, and especially when it gets emptier, it hardens out a little bit. So it's definitely firm. So I'm using a little bit like a dash, not even a lot, of gray of the extreme hold, right? Together with a little bit of fiber, and I'm like, I love this product. If I could eat it. Only if I could, I would probably eat it. This is really nice. It adds great texture. It adds enough hold. I think it's really sensitive to how much you use. So some products you use a little bit, but it's so firm that it's just gonna be too strong anyway. And this is like, if you use a lot of it, it's gonna really like lock the hair in place. But if you use a little bit, it's kind of like there is like a texture powder in the hair. It's super versatile. It mixes really well with grease, which I like. So I like using green and fiber together, for example. Just a really nice combination. It adds a little bit more shine to it. It takes the dryness out a little bit, but still keeps in the texture. It's just a really nice mixture, and I think it works for a lot of hair types. So fiber, in my opinion, is one of those products that works really well on curly hair. You could use it in wet hair and let it dry up with you can do crazy stuff with it. So I like that one a lot. Make sure you spread it through the hair well and thoroughly. It's not necessarily the most comfortable part of the haircut for a customer, but hey, we all like a little bit of pain, don't we? No. All right, we're almost there. So I'm just gonna get a comb. I do always use the comb with enough space in between the teeth. So if you're gonna use a really like teeny tiny comb, it's just gonna pull too much tension on the hair, and you're gonna comb the product out of the hair actually. So if you use a wider tooth, yeah, it's gonna allow a little bit more space, less tension. It's gonna sit quite naturally. And I just comb it to the back and just kind of spread through the product and got all the knots out of the hair. But that's pretty much all I'm doing first, and then I'm just making sure that everything is nice and straight. And he has a little wave in his hair, which is really nice. But it's also subtle, it's not too much. He does have a little bit of natural volume. So, and I usually point towards the mirror for the styling. And we always go slightly to the left, right? Where?
I don't remember.
Don't get nervous. Yeah. Slightly to the side.
Yes.
This side, yeah. So straight to the back. I like it, but it's I don't know how to say
Makes
it.
me look fat.
He says it makes him look fat. I didn't want to say that. he says it makes him look fat. That's just a matter of opinion. But it is harsh. Let's say it like that. It's quite harsh to like have a slick back and go like straight to the back. If you slightly throw it to the side, it just makes it a little bit more casual. And I guess for a lot of people who like a more casual style in general, it works a little bit better than pulling it straight to the back. So we're almost done pretty much. So now I'm styling it pretty clean. Again, it's a slick back. There's not a lot to it. I could style it for like 20 minutes, but it's not going to change. So I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and clean. What works really well too for haircuts like these is to get a slightly bigger comb, like an afro comb, or more like one of these funky texturizing combs, but stuff like this. And it's just gonna allow you to kind of throw the hair around a little bit and let it sit a little bit more naturally. Again, with these matte products, that just really works. With grease, I would always go for a tighter look. But I like a little bit of space. Again, I like movement. I like that the hair is still doing what it wants to do. There we go. So I think we're almost till the end, but I'm pretty much done really. So, like, I think styling is really personal. You could style for 20 minutes and get it super, super clean. Again, I like naturalism. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now. And I tend to check my haircuts from a little bit of distance. So when you're standing over here, like, you could see every little thing going on. So it's gonna pretty much make you mad until until you keep cutting and you're never done. I like to just take a few steps back and then check from there, because this is where, like, those few feet or meters, wherever you're from, it's just gonna give you a little bit more of a perspective on the whole balance of the thing, right? And when you're, thinking about other people seeing your haircut, not everyone walking by on the street is gonna look at it like this, right? People are gonna be walking by on the street, they're gonna see the haircut from the other side of the street even. So I'm happy. I'm pretty much done. I'm gonna untuck him. I'm just gonna clean up the contours really quick with a trimmer. With an edger, so it's nice and clean. That's the only thing I didn't do. I'm sorry, everyone makes mistakes. It's Monday. How many more reasons do you need? So just a quick outline on the contours. So I just really hope that everyone had fun, and I hope it was clear for everyone. Again, if there's any questions, you can always hit us up, send us a message, come by to the Old School. We always have some explanation for everything we do. And we don't really have secrets, so don't hesitate to reach out. Classic slick back, skin fade. Works every time. It's a really, really nice haircut. It's timeless to me, really. I like the symmetrical haircuts. I'm not a big fan of the parted haircuts. These really stand out to me. They speak. They're just, they're sophisticated, but they give this little wink, like, I'm also a bit sketchy, That's what I think, but it's a nice haircut. That's pretty much it for the demo. So I would like to thank everyone from everywhere for tuning in and taking the time to have a look. Again, I hope it was any worth. And it's super, super nice to see that there are so many people from all these places interested in seeing how we do a haircut. So I want to say thank you to Daniel as well. Really nice model. Again, can always rely on him. Really nice hair. Thanks to Guy. No one sees him, but he's there. Actually, he's kind of camouflaged. That's his thumb. Yeah, there we go. Super nice for helping out. Yeah, I hope everyone had fun, and I hope to see you for the next demo, and especially for the other demos from everyone from the Reuzel team. They're super cool. Tune in, be there, or be squared.
Thanks, Jonah.
Whee!
Awesome haircut. I could listen to you teach, watch you teach all day. Thanks
All
for
right.
everyone for hanging out with us today, tonight, this afternoon, wherever you're watching from. And don't forget to tune in next week, October 17th. We have Ambassador Samantha Keltner from Overland Park, Kansas with us next week. So we will see you then. Thanks.